Hey guys, and welcome to Functional Print Friday, and welcome back to my shop. So we've got a little help with today's video. Give me 1 second, let me get it. So Bambulab reached out and asked if they could send something over to the channel to help support the functional printing that we do here. And it was pretty easy to say yes to these guys because, as many of you know, I already use Bambulab printers primarily here for the functional parts that we do. In fact, with the exception of large parts that come out of the Neptune 4 Max, and I often run TPU on my Prusa Mark III's, pretty much everything else comes out of my Bambulab P1S. And I bought that machine with my own money, and I bought it because, well, it just works. You know, when I first got into this hobby back in 2017, half the hobby was just keeping your printer running, troubleshooting failed prints, upgrading to support something that the machine probably should have just supported out of the box. And I'm kind of just done with that part of the hobby at this point. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. If you're into, designing and building your own Voron style machine from scratch, cool. That in and of itself is a really neat hobby. But for me personally, at this point, I just want to design, engineer, and print cool stuff and use the 3D printer as one of the many tools in my shop to get that stuff done. I just want it to work. So Bambu originally wanted me to check out the full-size A1, and I said, well, I actually already bought one of those printers, and in fact reviewed it here on the channel a while back. And if you're interested in that, I will link that review down in the description of this video. But I was really interested in checking out the A1 Mini because you guys know I do a lot of functional prints and designs here on this channel, and sometimes it makes more sense to bring the printer to the job when you're prototyping versus trying to bring the job to the printer. And that's what I want to do in today's video. I want to try out this machine as basically like a portable prototyping machine. So this video is not going to be a review or an unboxing or anything like that. We're just going to try actually using the A1 Mini out in the field as a portable printer for prototyping. So to that point, let me get this thing all out of the box and set to go. All right, that was super easy. I think that was tightening 3 screws, popping this guy on, taking 4 screws out that hold like an immobilizer part here for the Z-axis, and then 2 more screws for the filament spool. By far the easiest 3D printer I've put together, and actually the easiest Bambulab printer I've put together as well. It's basically fully assembled. I also have the AMS for this, but I don't think we're going to need it for today. Okay, well this is definitely smaller and lighter than my full-size A1, which is great because I want this as a portable machine, but it's not very easy to move around. The A1, even though it's bigger and heavier, and honestly too big and heavy to be practical for moving around on a regular basis, at least it's got that bar on the top for the between the 2 side pillars that you can just grab a hold of to move it around. There's no easy place to grab on this. You don't want to grab it here because it's only attached on one side since it's a smaller build area. So you basically have to grab it here, which is fine for moving it around on the workbench, but not so great for carrying it any distance. Like I wouldn't want to pick it up that way and carry it from, say, the house or the shop out to, my car or something like that, and then into someone else's house or into someone else's shop. So I poked around online, and of course someone has figured out how to solve this. This is not my design. I will put a link for this down in the description of the video where I got this from, but I printed this off on the P1S quick. I think this is going to solve our problem. Let me just put this on quick. All right, as soon as I realized I had to take this piece off as well as this piece, that went right on. And Bambu, if you're listening, just if you ever redesign this printer, just put a handle on it. That is so much better. I can pick that up. I could carry that around all day like that. Good news is, I mean, you are a 1-hour print and 70 cents in filament away from just fixing that on your own. I'll probably never take that off. I kind of like the orange color on there, and yeah, it's way easier to carry around. Just realizing though, I think these are supposed to be in front of this axis, so we'll power this guy on and just bring the axis up and then flip those guys around the front. All right, I think that's in the right spot now, and I went and I hung a roll of filament on here and fed that into the machine as well. So I think we're basically ready to go. Hello? Okay. Yep. Okay. Yep. I'll be right over. How does he do that? Hello.
Hello.
All right, so is this our victim?
Yes, this is the Danby out of England. It's a 6-tonner.
A gorgeous machine.
It was shipped from England to a gentleman in Utah and then shipped to me. It's missing the center piece.
Ah, all right, so this is what you need. So this would have been, this would have had like just like a piece in here, like just a solid flat piece.
Yep, a solid flat or solid with a hole or a square.
Okay.
And this would hold different fixtures and jigs into the center.
So do you want a hole in the center?
I would like a 1-inch hole because I already have the 1-inch tooling to go in the hole.
Okay, so flush with the table surface?
Absolutely.
All right, so this looks like it might have been machined, but this thing's probably had quite a few years of use. So I think what we'll do is I'll measure this, and what we'll do is I'll design and 3D print a piece to go in there basically as like a test fit, because we don't know what this is really perfectly circular, and there's some burrs and stuff on here. Yeah, so because what I don't want to do, I mean, I can absolutely make this on the lathe, but what I don't want to do is make a piece and it doesn't fit, because it's going to take a lot longer to machine the insert for this than it will to draw something up and 3D print it, make a test piece. All right, so I'll get the measurements I need from this. What I'm going to try and do is I actually brought a small portable 3D printer with me. So the idea is I'm going to try and print this right in your driveway. And as long as that fits, then I'll machine up the final piece. Now, we bring back the final piece. Will you show us how this thing actually works?
Absolutely.
All right, awesome. All right, let me get these measurements and we'll get the piece done. All right, so I got all the key measurements with my digital caliper and I've drawn up the design, and it's really quite simple. The only surfaces that really matter are the outside diameter of the larger section, the distance from this face to this face, because this face is going to rest on the inside of that casting on the fly press, and this is going to be sort of the new tabletop for the center of the fly press. The bottom section doesn't matter as much because that just drops into an open space. The diameter and the position of the center hole definitely matter. The idea is to be able to put a piece of 1-inch tooling down here in the bottom of the fly press, so there should be a slip fit for 1-inch tooling. So I'm going to go ahead and get this exported as an STL. I'm going to pull it into Bambu Studio, I'm going to slice it, and then we're going to have to save this on an SD card and pop the SD card into the A1. So let me get this sliced up and bring it back. All right, I saved the slice file onto the SD card, and we can open it here on the printer now. It looks like this guy is going to take 1 hour and 31 minutes and use 71 grams of filament. Now, I've got the A1 Mini plugged into the Delta 2. This is at 100%. Fingers crossed that we have enough power to print this. I would think we will, but I don't know for sure how many watts the heated bed and the nozzle are going to use on this. I mean, 3D printing does consume a fair amount of electricity. So, all right, let me get you guys in the tripod and I'll start this print and we'll see how we do. All right, looks like this just finished and we have plenty of power to spare. This guy is still at 82%, so that is good to see. Let's get this off the bed. Ooh, it's still pretty warm. Yeah, PLA generally self-releases from these PEI sheets when it cools down, but this guy's still pretty warm. Let's see if we can pop it off. I don't want to damage the sheet. Yeah, maybe I'll set this here and just let it cool for a minute. All right, I gave this a few minutes to cool off. It's still warm, but I'm impatient. I really want to see if this piece fits, so let's see if it pops off. Yep, no problem. Wow, that looks really good. Like, really good. Yeah, you guys can probably see the layer lines better than I can, but it looks really clean to my eye here, and our top finish looks really nice as well. Extrusion looks really even. Maybe a little bit of over extrusion just here around the edge on this side. And our bottom looks really good too off that PEI sheet. All right, let's go see if this fits. Ooh, I think that's it. Come take a look. What do you think?
Oh yeah.
Looks like we're clearing. I was a little bit worried about this bottom part down here, but I think we're clearing on both of them. Now, do you have a piece of something we want to try in this 1-inch hole to make sure that this clears? That loose enough for you?
Oh yes.
All right. I guess it's time to actually do it in steel. All right, we're back in my shop, and now that we have confirmed the test fit of our piece that we designed for the fly press, it's time to actually make it from steel. And I've got 2 hunks of metal here that I think will get the job done. They both have their advantages and disadvantages. This one's 1045, this one is 4140. I'll admit my understanding of metallurgy is not as good as my understanding of 3D printing filament, but I think either one of these would be a good choice from a metal perspective for use on that fly press. The chunk of 1045 is quite a bit wider in diameter than we need. It is close to the correct height. We'd be wasting, I guess, about probably ½ inch of material here on the length, and then the diameter we are taking off quite a bit. So yeah, I don't exactly like that. And wider diameter material or larger diameter material is hard to come by. So I'd like to try and save that for a future project. The 4140, the advantage here is it is almost exactly our finished diameter. It is bigger. I did actually check against our the design for this as well as the actual dimension of this part, because at this point the real finished dimensions of this test piece matter even more than what we have in CAD, because we know this one physically fits. So I measured, and we'd actually be taking about 20 thou off the OD for this. So that's good. We still have a little bit of material to work with in case we're not running exactly true in the lathe. And, you know, we can cut this guy to whatever length we need. So I'm leaning towards using this piece. To cut this will be the first real piece of material that goes into the bandsaw that's actually already been on the channel a couple of times. It's the one that we did the concrete counterweight for, as well as designing the tension wrench for. So I'd also kind of like to see how that saw does cutting this material. 4140 is going to be a 4-inch chunk of it. It's going to be no joke to cut. So yeah, let's go put this in the saw and see if we can cut off a cookie or blank or whatever you want to call it for this piece. All right, these cuts are just absolutely gorgeous for saw cuts. They are perfectly smooth, particularly if I compare it to the saw cut that was on the other side of this piece of material. It is quite rough, not straight at all. And our cut is crazy, crazy flat and straight. And I checked with just a square, and it is, I mean, I can see a little bit of daylight there at the top, but for a saw cut on just round bar like this, that is impressive. All right, let's get this piece in the lathe and make some more chips. All right, and it is done, and I am super proud of how this part came out. Wasn't without a couple different challenges, mainly around the feeds and speeds. I was really trying to find a feed and speed that would both break a chip and give me a good surface finish, and I just couldn't get there. And I'm sure that's just down to my inexperience as a machinist. I mean, I'm just a hobbyist at best, but I am really happy with how this came out, and all the dimensions are within a thou. In fact, most are within a few tenths. And you saw there as a final step, I did engrave the bottom on my Monport GA30 fiber laser, and just really happy with how that came out too. I think that just gives it a neat personal touch that will hopefully be there for a long time. It's a little silly to spend all that time getting the surface finish so nice on this when it's just going to get beat up on that fly press anyway, but I really wanted it to look as good as possible. And let's just check. The most important dimension is the thickness of this part here, because this face sits down on the fly press and this is going to be the top of the table. I think I was within a couple tenths on that one. Let's just check it. Yeah, so that I was aiming for 0.750. I'm only 0.3 off on that, and that's probably the most important dimension. So really proud of that. All right, with this all done, let's take this back over to the blacksmith shop, see if it fits in the fly press, and maybe we'll even get a chance to see it in action. All right, those bells look awesome. You ready to check this out?
Sure.
Got it wrapped up like a Christmas present. Needless to say, I am all fingers crossed that this thing fits. What do you think?
Beautiful.
Yes! Oh, it's nice and flush too. Do we have a tool to try in there? I believe I'm at the same bore that we were on the test piece. Oh, perfect. Yeah, that looks good. All right, can we see this thing do something? It looks like it's doing the business. So what did you do before this? How were you using this?
Oh, you know, to keep stuff from shifting around, I did nonsense like this.
What?
Which is very impractical.
What the heck is that?
Well, even if you bolted this down to keep it dead on straight, you put ears on it. So, but for the left and right, I'd stick this in, which is kind of nonsense. Then I'd put my ears on, and then bolt these ears down as such. But now, the next stuff that I build, will have a nice piece of 1-inch bar stock in it, and it'll sit nice and flush on here.
Yeah, so now you can just basically do 1-inch shaft tooling.
Correct. Even if the stuff was 1/2 inch thick or better, with the 6-ton press, it was still having flex in the middle when the ram came down. But now that the space is taken up, I'm expecting no flex.
Yeah, well, I mean, I definitely, as beefy as that is, I don't think it's going to flex. Hopefully, the only thing I worry about is just wear on the top surface. So eventually,
Yeah,
you might be
that's
making
fine.
you another one of these. But, I mean, at least you know that for starting out, this face up here is completely true to the, just true square to your table, because that's bored in the center. So what's the story with these bells I saw you making?
These are our Krampus bells that I just got done forging today. They still need to be wire wheeled and cleaned up and oiled, but these will be going off to a Krampus festival in Pennsylvania.
Is that stamped in there?
That is stamped.
That is really
Stamps
cool.
are put in hot. The stamp here says Krampus Nacht or Krampus Night.
You have anything else we could see?
Sure do.
That is gorgeous. So I assume you're not making everything here for yourself. Do you sell this stuff?
Yes, we do on Etsy.
All right, I'll have to get that link for the Etsy store. I'll get that down in the description of the video. How long have you been doing this?
Oh, about 15 years.
All right, so that was Shannon's shop, and the name of his store on Etsy is Oak Street Forge, PA. And you don't have to worry about typing that in. I will put a link down in the description of this video. Now, I have known Shannon for over 20 years, and he's been doing blacksmith work for about 15 years. Honestly, incredibly humble guy with the skill set that he has in blacksmithing. And he's got a number of the things that we saw him working on in his shop actually for sale on his Etsy store. I don't have any affiliation with his business. I just really enjoy seeing people actually make stuff from scratch, as their day job. He does this full time. And, Etsy gets a bad rap. I think there's a lot of people that just, import stuff and resell it on Etsy as if they've made it. All of his stuff actually comes out of his shop. And honestly, I think his prices are pretty darn good for, the level of effort that he puts into stuff. So definitely check out his store here on Etsy. All right, well, that went really well. This machine so far has really impressed me. I can't see any difference in the print quality between the part that came off of this one and my A1 or even my P1S. So I think print quality is really good. Obviously, your build volume is a little bit smaller, but not that much smaller. In fact, let me go grab the plate off my A1. All right, here's the build plate off my full-size A1. Let me pop this one off so you can see them both. Make sure I'm actually in frame here. So the full-size A1 is 256 by 256 build volume in length and width. This one is 180 by 180. You're not giving up that much, and you're getting a much more portable printer. So if portability is important to you, I think it's worth checking this out. We're going to be seeing more of this on the channel. Whenever it makes sense to take the printer to the project instead of to bring the project back here to my shop. And I'm sure there's going to be instances where it makes sense to do that. I think for now, though, what I'm going to do with this machine is I'm actually going to set this up for my kids to use. I think I'm going to take this and I'm going to set this up in the hallway upstairs between their rooms, because while I have a bunch of 3D printers they can use, and they have used them for projects, they're down in my shop and there's almost always something going on with those machines. I think if I give them their own machine that is just for them to use, and I put the Bambu Handy app on their phones, set them up with the Bambu Studio software on their computers, I bet you they use this printer a lot more often. And yeah, it's probably not going to be functional stuff. I'll set them up with the AMS. I bet you this is going to be doing minifigs and stuff like that. But that's fine. This printer is great for that. And then when I still need it for projects on the go, I can disconnect the AMS, grab it by the nice handle, and just take it and do whatever we need to do. The other thing I think this 3D printer is going to be really good at, in addition to being a portable machine for folks that are already really into the hobby, is a first-time printer for people. I don't know about you guys, but in my circle of friends, everyone knows I'm the guy that knows 3D printers, so I constantly get asked the question of, what printer do you recommend I get? I only want to spend 200 bucks, or I only want to spend 300 bucks, or, my kid's birthday's coming up. They were talking about a 3D printer, or Christmas is coming up. I'd like to get my kid a 3D printer. I'd like to get my nephew a 3D printer. I don't see how you can go wrong with this machine for 199 bucks. I think it's an extra 150, so 349 with the AMS. If they want to do multicolor, the AMS is really nice to have, but for just a basic entry-level printer without the AMS, 200 bucks is tough to beat. And yeah, Bambulab sent me this machine for free, so call me biased, that's fair. But tell me down in the comments, do you have a recommendation of a better printer to recommend that someone gets for $200? Because this thing prints just as good as all my other much more expensive Bambulab machines that, to be fair, do have other capabilities, but if you're just printing PLA, this thing is great. And it's not like this printer is limited to doing just PLA. It'll do PETG or the other common 3D printing filaments as well. What it's not going to do is things like the high temperature engineering filaments. It's just not designed to do that. Don't even try. You're going to need an X1C or an X1E for any of those specialized engineering filaments. All right, I don't want to keep going on about this machine and sound like a sales pitch, but I do really like my Bambulab machines. They are the printers that I use 9 times out of 10, unless the build volume doesn't work out. I mentioned before, and if you guys are subscribers to the channel, I have an Elegoo Neptune 4 that I use for my larger prints, and I really dislike that machine. It brings me back to those days of having to constantly tinker with it to get quality prints off of it. Bambulab supposedly has a machine in the works. They've been really tight-lipped about the details on it that I believe is going to be a larger format machine. So I'm hoping kind of same concept as either the P1S or the X1C, but a larger print volume. I hope that's what they're actually going to be coming out with, and I really hope they can send us one to check out on the channel, because if I could stop using that Elegoo Neptune 4 Max for my larger prints, I would love that. Let me know down in the comments, what machine do you think is coming next? Have you heard any rumors? I did ask the person that reached out to me that sent this machine, and they were really tight-lipped about it. They did confirm that there is a printer in the works, but they couldn't give me any information about it. I asked if it would be possible to check one out on the channel when it does come out. They said yes, so fingers crossed that that happens. But again, let me know down in the comments, what rumors have you heard, and what are you hoping for in a new 3D printer from Bambulab? Guys, as always, thanks for hanging out in the shop with me for this week's design and print. I had a really great time over at the blacksmith shop. Hopefully that was interesting for you guys to see as well. And this thing took about an hour and a half to print, and you darn well better believe for that hour and a half, I was in his shop messing with everything that he didn't say I couldn't touch. So if you're interested in seeing anything more in that shop, let me know. I can try and look for other things where 3D printing would bring some benefit to his shop in either prototyping or an actual use as a 3D printed part. So again, let me know down in the comments if you want to see more of his shop. If this is by chance your first time here on my channel, this is all we do here. It's all functional prints. I don't do any multicolored doodads of the week or anything like that. It's always a functional part that is either prototyping something or adding some functionality to something here in my shop or out in the yard or around the house. So if you're into that sort of thing, check out some of the other videos here on the channel. And if you like what you see, hit the subscribe button. And guys, if you do, I'll see you next Friday.